Welcome to Candid Conversations with Doc V, a collaboration with the unprecedented enterprise Win-Win Women, a global movement to reach, teach, and talk with women and girls around the world in 195 nations. As a woman heals, the earth heals. Our mission is to care, connect, and collaborate with 3.9 billion women worldwide, so all can enjoy a level of excellence in every area of their lives and be more joyful, fulfilled, and financially secure. We care by loving and inspiring all women. We connect as we teach and talk together. We collaborate to grow successful businesses. To that end, Candid Conversations is where real talk about real experiences and circumstances is the norm and not the exception to help you heal, rebuild, and transform your life and or online business from the inside out and put you back in business and on the road to defining your path. Hi, I'm Doc V, the Pivot Maestro, and your corner woman, if you haven't already figured that out. Here to provide truth and transparency in conversation to help you navigate the waters and think without a box. What is my why? You are my why and motivation to create a safe haven, to validate you and your experiences, and to provide hope and freedom in your thinking and being so that you may live the life and lifestyle you were meant to lead. All are welcome to the conversation, particularly those men who love us, with our topics running the gamut and focused on issues women face every day in life, the workplace, career transition, and business. On Candid Conversations, it is our intention to always provide revelation, reconciliation, and renaissance, having one mission in mind to help you define your path in one message: you are mission essential. Yes, even as a woman, because you are grace under pressure and the world needs your voice. All month long, we have been discussing the topic of managing your reality. Last week, we remixed that discussion with a focus on validation. This week, we're remixing with a conversation on motivation. Today, we have a very special guest, my girl, and truly a sister from another mister, Trina Martin. Let me tell you a little about Trina. Trina L. Martin is a technologist, speaker, author, and podcaster. She uses her experiences to motivate audiences to overcome adversity, develop self-determination, and discipline. Trina also inspires emerging leaders to pursue their wildest dreams with heart and grit. An accomplished IT professional and retired U.S. naval officer with 30 years of service, she has broken barriers and made strides in her career that many said weren't possible. Trina is the author of the book, From a Mess to Amazing: 7 Steps to Create the Life You Deserve. Be sure to pick that up. She is also a co-author of the anthology, Make It Happen, and host of her very own podcast show, Trina Talk. Trina, welcome to Candid Conversations, sis. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, sis. Thank you for having me. I'm ready for the conversation. You know I love you, girl.
Yes. Back at you, and likewise. Folks, I have nothing but love for this woman. She and I connected October 2019 at a conference in Los Angeles. It was Lisa Nichols with Susie Carter at the Speak and Write. We literally jumped off the proverbial cliff at the same time together on our current entrepreneurial journeys. Trina, do you remember that?
I do. And do you remember the year-long training that we went through together, all tired-eyed?
Yes. There have been bumps, the bruises, lessons learned along the way, but a never say die and always a can-do mindset. Those two things have driven us, whether we've been crawling, walking, or running, out of breath, whatever.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that, sis. So last week, we had a deep dive on validation and our human need for it in relation to managing your reality. Let's talk about motivation and where that comes from, intrinsic or otherwise, and how that interfaces with validation in the whole conversation of managing your reality. So my thought is that once you learn how to love the skin you're in, that becomes your fortification and defense against the crippling effects of validation. What are your thoughts?
I totally agree. And motivation, it plays off the validation, right? You can't have one without the other, or if you have enough motivation, you don't seek the validation
Yes.
outwardly.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, my motivation came from my childhood with having a verbally abusive mother. So I was my own motivation, being fueled to succeed, to get away, and to stay out of that environment. But also, because of that, I sought validation from others because the self-esteem was low, and my self-esteem was low, and the things that I was hearing from my mother kind of destroyed that. So I went to others looking for that validation. But once I actually started to love the skin that I was in and know me and love myself, I no longer sought validations from other, because I was motivated from within. I was motivated myself to do the things that I knew I was called to do. And I wasn't looking for acceptance from anyone else. So, yeah, I think if you're loving the skin you're in, that's going to drive your motivation. And in return, you're not looking for validation from anyone because you are your own validation.
Ooh, that gave me chills, girl. So that you are your own validation. I love it. Yes. So, many people honestly believe they do not have a choice but to remain in their circumstances. But don't be hard on them, because we all fall into this false sense of security because it's how we have been trained, whether it's sociocultural. So the great news, though, that we have figured out is that we can be unconditioned and we actually can move out of that old conditioning or thought processes. So I have a saying, it's called find your willpower, find your strength. What does that mean to you? How does that resonate?
Oh, you know what? That's everything. That is everything, because as you said, a lot of people think that the situation that they're in, that's it, they're hopeless. And that was one of the reasons why I wrote my book, From a Mess to Amazing, because your circumstance doesn't define you. Like you said, you have to have that willpower, and that willpower will lead you out. We all go through things, good, bad, indifferent, all of these things. We all have seasons in our lives, but those circumstances that seem to bind us or hold us back are not things that we have to be in. You make a choice. Yeah, sometimes circumstances come not because of our own doing, but it's up to you and your mindset and your willpower on whether or not you're going to stay in that circumstance. So, I just think that people really need to find that willpower, find that motivation, so that they know that that circumstance does not define them. Where you begin is not where you end, at least not if you don't want it to. You have that choice to change that. And like you say, you can unlearn whatever has been programmed in you, whether consciously or unconsciously. But circumstances are just that. They're just a moment, and you do not have to stay in that moment.
So true. Excellent points. So, you said a word here, choice. Choice has been all over the news lately. I mean, however you want to take the conversation, but choice is a birthright, and that is huge. And I think so many people remain in their circumstance because they don't understand and realize and really own the fact that they have the right to choose, to choose to define their path. So, the world, the workplace, business, all of it easily changes, right? But human beings, we find it difficult to change. And I think that's tied to choice. We'll opt to simply continue trying to manage our reality, or tragically become obsolete because we don't want to choose. How do we do more than manage our reality? How do we lead life?
It's all about living, having that mindset, having a growth mindset, and not being stuck in your circumstance. We've all experienced where whether you're on a job and you have people who say, well, this is how we always did it. Or if you're trying to incorporate a new technology or a new process, oh, I don't want to learn it. This is how we've done it and it worked this way. Well, that's their choice to stay stagnant. And if you have a growth mindset, you should always want to evolve because the world is evolving. People evolve, everything evolves, nothing stays the same. And if you're not willing to do that and to change, you're going to be stuck and the world is going to pass you by. And yeah, you're going to look up one day and you're going to say, I'm just in the passenger seat, getting driven along. Life is just taking me wherever it takes me. I have no control over this. Where you actually do. You just have to get in that driver's seat and put your hand on the steering wheel and be intentional about your life.
So it all starts with choice, it seems.
Choice. Yes.
Understanding that and exercising your willpower to choose. So you hit on some things there too. So as human beings, we tend to settle for reasonable happiness as a substitute, or as opposed to finding real happiness or pursuing real happiness, and it leaves this gaping hole festering in the soul. I'm a witness to that. Before I transitioned out of the workplace, it was like I was grappling with the security of a paycheck, which with a false sense of security, because when you're in these hierarchical structures, they can decide anytime they're going to write up some disciplinary action letters, whether it's true or not, or put something in your file, and there goes your job, right? So what motivates people to change, to want and seek change? How do they remove the blinders before that thing happens, before life happens? Where do they start?
Oh, that's a really good question. And sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom. I've been there, just like you said. I've settled for relationships that I knew I shouldn't have been in because you think this is the best I'm gonna get, whether I'm too old or there's no one else out there. I've settled in the job, going to a job where okay, this is not my calling. I'm miserable, but I got a mortgage to pay. In my instance, it's like, yeah, I got a mortgage and 2 kids. So you keep doing this, but I think, yeah, sometimes it takes the rock bottom for someone and the back against the wall for someone to finally wake up and see that this is not where I want to be. And we all have been living through this pandemic for 2.5 years almost.
Way too long.
Way too long. And so, we have that great resignation, and we have people who found themselves and found a different path in life because of it. And I think that happened for a lot of people, and it brought on some good, because I say that to myself too. I'm like, I think COVID was the best thing for me because it made me see where my life was just on cruise control. And I didn't have the handling of it that I thought, and I wasn't as happy as I thought. So I think until someone actually really truly is honest with themselves and look within themselves, I don't think they can come to that point where they know, okay, I'm just living life and I don't want to do it anymore. So I think it takes, and it's sad to say that something devastating has to happen, or you have to be pushed against the wall, or you have to hit rock bottom. But a lot of times it is something that has to hit us upside our head for us to realize that, okay, I have just been, going along, and I really need to stop going along and really me defining the path.
Yeah, that's like a fear that we face, and again, we don't realize that we actually can choose to redefine our paths later in life. There's no expiration date, as long as we're breathing, it's a possibility, it's a choice, it's a reality we can choose, So you hit on something there also, cruise control, when you liken just how we live, and that's in essence, the managing reality concept or thought that we've been unpacking over the month. So when you think about cruise control, when you're in a car, right, you can set a speed, you're going in one direction. You can take your foot off the gas, but you can't take your hands off the wheel. And you have to make sure that you're still keeping that wheel straight so you don't go off the rails. So when you think about just that kind of mindless operation of a vehicle in which we're using the cruise control, and how many people oftentimes just blank out.
Right.
It's like you're just kind of going this zone and you're like, oh my God, how did I get here? Like,
Yes.
like 5 minutes later down the road. That's how we live.
Yeah. Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head when you said mindless. And it's funny because sometimes I'll say things, somebody say, oh, how was your day? And I'm like, rinse and repeat. I did this, this, and this, rinse, repeat. We're doing it again tomorrow. And it's sad, but that's what we do. It's like the process. It's like doing laundry. Okay, there's one load, boom, next load. It's mindless. Exactly what you said. You don't have to put any thought to it. It's not brain surgery. It's like, okay, it's just, we're just in the routine. And then we keep doing it. We keep doing it. Years pass. And then finally, we're at that point where we're going, where did my life go? Or how did I end up here? And it's because we got into that rinse and repeat mindless cycle. And we just kind of, we're on cruise control. We just let whatever come, how our life took us. We went that way. And yeah, and then we don't really live. And I really, it's something that I always say I didn't want to do, and I'm going to just deviate a little bit. My mother was verbally abusive, as I said, but I always looked at her and I promised myself that I would never live in the shoulda, woulda, coulda, because I watched her all her life. And I think this is one of the reasons why she probably was so verbally abusive to me, because she was so unhappy in her own life. And I just remember her going through life saying, oh, well, I should have did this or should have. And my thing is, live life in the moment. Tomorrow's not promised to either one of us. I don't care how much money you try to make. When you go, you can't take it with you.
Right.
And I'm not saying to live your life recklessly or, unwisely, but you have to live, and you have to live on intention. You have to make it a plan of saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to be a good steward over my life. And I kind of think about it as like in that passage in the Bible, where, Jesus gave the men talents, and 3 of the men, and 2 of the 3 men doubled what he gave them. And then the one did nothing. And sometimes that's how we live our lives. Is you have a life, you're given whatever your talent is, whatever it is, and it's, what are you going to do with it? Are you just here on this planet, just living every day, living, breathing, working, paying bills, and then you're going to die? Or are you going to actually live your life and do something that's going to impact others and actually lead you on your path to destiny?
That's powerful. It's so true. Thank you for sharing that and just being vulnerable and having real talk. I mean, because that is real.
Yeah.
That's real life. It happens all across life, every walk of life, no matter our culture or, where we come from, and I think about just in that same vein with the conditioning that starts in the home, that continues in the educational system, that happens in society. And people don't realize when they're watching television or they're listening to radio, that's conditioning also, and we're intaking that, and it becomes a part of who we are and how we think and how we react in life. So I want to talk about in our closing moments, just the thought of how social cultural conditioning is stealing our drive, stealing our motivation. In my chapter, in my book, Love the Skin You're In, How to Conquer Life Through Divergent Thinking, in the chapter on the balancing act, which is a false sense, but that's a whole nother conversation for another day. I talk about challengers and sparring partners that we have in life, and I liken life to a boxing ring. So I want to specifically talk about drive as a sparring partner or potentially a challenger, depending on how we tap into it or don't tap into it, you know, in these last few moments. So I assert that drive, it comes from, it can be intrinsic or it can come from circumstance. And we've already kind of talked about that. What are your thoughts on that? How did you find your drive and come to be known as the queen of tech?
Oh my goodness. Mine started with circumstance from my childhood, which led me to being a type A person. Type A, very driven to succeed. First in my family to go to college. I paid for my own education, ended up in the military, succeeding to become an officer, and having that great career. And then now here I am, entrepreneur, the queen of equality, you know, in tech, because of the things that I went through. And as I started looking back on my life, and I'm saying, wow, I need to, this is me. I went through these things for a reason. And that's again, that's that self-reflection. That's that looking back inward and looking back on your life. And something just said, hey, this is your calling. And I took that, everything that I did, and compiled it into the years that I spent in tech and helping women in that space. So it depends on what will drive you, what will fuel you. Mine was circumstances from childhood, but then it ended up being a culmination of my life journey. But again, it all goes to mindset. It all goes to, you know, what we were talking about, actually taking in life. And I think that's the most important part, because if you don't take in life, you're not going to get all of these cues. You're not going to be aware of when, you know, you're being led a certain way and what your purpose may be and what path you may need to go down. And being self-aware and having that mindset and the inner voice, to listen to that inner voice, to lead you. I think that all plays into everything we're been talking about tonight: the drive, the motivation, everything. I think being self-aware is something that's really, really essential.
That's huge, girl. You said a mouthful, and we look, we don't have enough time to get into that, but I want to so badly. That will be next week's topic.
Call me back.
Self-awareness, it's huge. But you know, that requires looking in the mirror, you know, and facing the fears. So your life experiences could have led you to, or could have taken away your drive,
right?
But you used it as fuel, as motivation to find your drive and to do better, to be better. Did you know, was there a soul calling? Did you feel a soul calling all along, you know, a call to greatness? And, you know, and I don't mean that in an egotistical way, you know, I certainly believe that we all have greatness in us, but too often, most often, we don't answer the call.
Right. You know, like I said, mine started out just to get away from my mother. And it's funny you asked this question, because I had someone ask me this this last week as I spoke at a conference, is how did I do it? It's the same question. What drove me to be driven one way and not the other way? And I had just made up in my mind that I wanted to succeed. I wanted better. And that I wasn't going to take my circumstance and let that define me in a negative way. So I ended up taking my circumstance and saying, you know what, instead of it taking me down a path that people expected, I'm going to take it and I'm going to turn it around and make everybody shocked. And that was my drive. I
love it. I absolutely love it. And look at you now, sis. You're just doing big things. You turned you've just retired from a 30-year career as a naval officer. You know, you are just making waves on the equality and tech scene. So what's next for you? I mean, what else are you being motivated to?
Oh, you know, I'm doing my speaking, but right now my coaching program, Tech Trifecta, I'm working with women one-on-one in the tech space. So those obstacles and biases that we face And if you're trying to get paid, promoted, and get to leadership, I want to work with you and help use my voice and my knowledge to help you get there.
Mm. That's beautiful. Oh, I love it, sis. I love it. I just love what you're about, your heart, how you're showing up in the world, and I just can't wait to see your star continue to rise. So what if people who aren't here in the States, want to reach out, who are out there in other countries who are striving to learn, who want to be educated? What do you say to them? How do you motivate them? Contact me.
Contact me. And we can work a journey together. But, if you're not in the States, my email is trina@trinalmartin.com. I'll be happy to speak with anyone. But it's the same thing, whether you're here in the States or you're anywhere else. It still boils down to that mindset, that motivation, and that drive.
Mindset, motivation, and drive. Sis, I don't have anything else to say. Trina, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today on Candid Conversations.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast, and I love what you're doing. I love how you're showing up in this space, and I'm truly so honored that we got to meet each other, 3 years ago now?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something that I think it was a divine connection, and I'm so glad for it.
Without question, and I look forward to continuing the journey with you, sis.
Exactly.
So audience, I hope you've enjoyed Real Talk with Trina L. Martin. I know that you found nuggets throughout this episode. Your call to action. Are you tapping into motivation or simply managing your reality? Think on it and the revelations you've received today and begin to reconcile them with the path you're on right now so that you may move into your renaissance, your rediscovery and rebirth. If you're ready to pivot, to heal, rebuild, and transform your life or business circumstances from the inside out, we are here for you at Defining Paths. We invite you to explore our virtual home, which we call lovingly our one-stop shop. It's all about holistic solutions to transform your life and your business. Visit us at definingpaths.online and discover how you might become a part of the DP family, a family who cares and that's determined to put you back in business. If you've already started your business and you need foundations built or crack sealed, check out our 90-day True Vision Challenge, a turnkey solution designed with not only you in mind, your business, but also your holistic wellness. And it's built for profitability, longevity, and sustainable wins. If you're here to just simply have a safe haven to be a part of the conversation for your betterment, thank you so much for spending time with us. It is not taken lightly. And I hope you all will join us next week for Candid Conversations as we close out the month-long conversation on managing your reality. And Trina just gave us our topic for next week. We have one more remix for you. So show up and we'll talk about self-awareness. Until then, what is our mantra, ladies? Strong is the new sexy. Be strong in mind, body, soul, and business. Define your path and love the skin you're in. I'm Doc V, the Pivot Maestro, and always your corner woman. I am my sister's keeper. I will see you next week.